Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Scott Church, and we're here with another top 10 rarest or most valuable. However you want to kind of think about this, a top 10 card list, and this time we're doing WWE Raw Deal. This is a game I feel a lot of feelings about because when I was a kid, all my Star Wars CCG friends left to go play this game, and I was like, but I don't like wrestling. So I didn't really ever get it. So I'm kind of excited to see where this game's at.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me on again. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the video. Man, I'm excited for this one. WWE Raw Deal is one of my favorite games. And for those Star Wars players out there, it has a very similar feel in the fact that you are using your life deck as your health, basically. So you're overturning cards or taking damage to your deck. And so you're losing cards that you'd eventually be able to play in the game. And so for a Star Wars player, it's similar in that same way. The difference is you're choosing one wrestler and you're using them through the game. And so it makes it a little different in that sense where you're going just with one main character and they have abilities and cards specifically suited to them to be able to play in the game. It's a blast to play, Matt. If you've never played it, we had a local tournament director where he'd do really fun games where it's like every time you took a point of damage or like a card of damage, you had to take a drink of a terrible soda, or we had just really goofy tournaments kind of built around the game. And it made it really fun where you could have different belts that the characters would win. And so you'd come into that week and he'd know whose decks had which belt. And then he'd set it up like a wrestling card where it's like, you're playing so-and-so, wins gets this belt. And it was really fun to see that. So we're going to look at some of the pricing, though. That was just a little bit about the game. It's really a blast if you haven't had a chance to ever play it. I highly recommend grabbing some starters and sitting down with it.
Yeah, I guess one quick thing before you get into our top 10 list, if you're just somebody that's curious about this game, can you pick up just a playable-ish deck for pretty cheap, or is the game, rather expensive? Obviously, we're going to the top 10 rarest, but
yeah.
Is the bottom stuff pretty available?
Oh, yeah. So, this game is great because the commons and uncommons are all like around 20 cents, and you can play with them. Basically, a starter deck gets you playing, and then you can build from there. And a lot of the basic lower tier wrestlers, if you will, have cheap cards. Most of their stuff is 50 cents at most. There might be a few ultra rares per character, and those would be, $5 to $10 on the cheaper side. And you can get going with just about any superstar or wrestler you want and then build up from there. Some of the more popular superstars like Triple H obviously is going to have a lot more cards based around his abilities. But if you wanted someone like Tajiri or I don't know, like Jamie Noble, like you can
like a different language to a non-wrestling fan. It's like I'm like, who are these guys? All right, but let's get into our list. So this is the top 10 rarest or hardest to find, most expensive, however you kind of want to frame it. But let's start with number 10 here. So we're going to go into this.
All right. So these are Backstage Signature cards, and these were given out as tournament prizes. And each tournament director would get these, and they would have a random signature for one of the wrestlers at the time. So I believe this one is Batista is his signature. So depending on which wrestler you got, depended on kind of the value of it. So they go anywhere from like $80 up to $500, depending on who it is. And these cards are actually playable with your cards in your deck. And so they're actually beneficial for the game, and they're also collectible. It's cool to have a signature for one of the wrestlers.
Cool. All right. So that's number 10. So this is kind of a range of cards. It could be, I guess, 40 or 50 different ones.
That's right. Yeah, there's about 40 to 50 different signatures on this batch. And then this next card that we're going to see, number 9, it's the same sort of setup where if you want to switch over to 9 there, Matt,
yep.
It's a signing appearance, and it's the same sort of deal where it's playable, but it also has like a character, or not a character, but a wrestler's signature. Like this one is Edge, and Edge is one of the more popular wrestlers. He's getting pretty close to retirement again, and so his signature, I would guess, would go up here pretty soon. But if you got like John Cena or some of the bigger named wrestlers, they had more value. Whereas if you got like Goldberg, it had lower value, that sort of thing.
Okay. And I guess a lot of this stuff, if people want to purchase this, do you have a pretty good selection of Raw Deal on your website as well?
I do, yeah. I have a great selection of it. It's one of the games we continually get product in for, and we're always moving it out too. So it comes and goes a lot. And In fact, the hardest to get stuff for us right now is commons and uncommons because people buy 20 to 30 at a time to build multiple decks. And what's good about this game is you can play multiple decks. People have 40 different decks built. I had about 30 when the game was in print, where you could just choose a different superstar and play against them, or you had your buddies over, you all just chose someone randomly and played. It's really a fun way to be able to play the game.
All right, well, let's go on to number 8 here.
All right, number 8. So this was X-treme Hedonism, Survivor Series 3. So they basically had like how Magic had like core sets. The WWE Raw deal also had core sets. They called them Survivor Series sets. So every like year or two, they would put out a Survivor Series set that basically reset what your core cards were. And Survivor Series 3 was near the end of the game. You'll see most of these high-end cards are from that set. And it's because it reset it, kind of what the cards were you're using. And they also made throwback, which means they updated older cards and made them better. This isn't a throwback, but you can see there's 2 wrestlers on this one. This has Lita and Trish Stratus. And so 2 different characters could use this card. So usually when you have a card that could be used by multiple people, you needed at least 2 of them for your different decks. So it made them more valuable.
So, I mean, is it also just as a collectability here because it's scantily clad women? Like, I feel like there's just always going to be that in games, right? Where
yeah, and wrestling has plenty of that. I mean, they have so many of the women wrestlers that are in, card images like that in different poses where, yeah, there's a whole collectability factor to people that just want that stuff as well.
All right, let's go to number 7 here.
All right, so this is Ric Flair interferes. Again, this is a Survivor Series 3 card. And this is Triple H's last ultra rare, one of the last ultra rares for him in the Survivor Series set. And for him, as wrestlers were under contract at different times and they released a set, they'd have to change some of the cards. So there was like China interferes. China was no longer with the company. And then it was like Stephanie interferes. And then they made Ric Flair interferes because Ric Flair was signed at that time when the set came out. So they made this his card to get in this set. Anyways, that's kind of how that one's set up.
So I'm curious, in general, are these lists, is this entire list expensive because these cards are highly playable, or are they more on the collecting side, or kind of a mixture of both?
A mixture of both. So this Survivor Series 3 set is kind of like if you had a massive Magic set and you just didn't get many of the ultra rares or mythics for Magic in them, right? So let's say you had this is a 500 something card set and you've got 80 of these ultra rares that people want and you're only getting like 3 per box. So it made them highly collectible. Survivor Series 3 sold out everywhere. Prices skyrocketed. Finding it now is almost impossible. So it's kept the pricing on these up because there's not like a unlimited supply like Decipher had on, say, Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, where you can still buy boxes for the same amount when they came out. This was a smaller print run. It's sold out everywhere. It's collectible card, like it's very usable cards. It's also collectible. So it kind of hits every marker that you want to keep your value high. And you're not going to see these really decrease unless people just stop playing the game altogether.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to number 6 here. So number 6.
Okay, so this is Chris Jericho's Ayatollah Rock and Rolla throwback Survivor Series 3. So they basically took this like junky card and then made it a throwback version, so updated it so it's useful for what the meta was like at that time. And so this is just a very collectible card, hard to find. That's just kind of the way these go. A lot of the time is they're just needed for decks. You'll see there's 2 Chris Jericho cards on this list because Chris Jericho is a popular character to play and people like playing him. So,
all right, we ready for number 5? Top 5.
Yeah, let's go. Top 5.
All
right. This is that other Chris Jericho card, the Springboard drop kick. And this is another throwback, so it's updating an older card and making it much more useful. Chris Jericho, so each superstar has their own hand size, superstar ability, and superstar ability. So like Chris Jericho's was you can discard a card to make your opponent discard a card. And so you could get it to where he has a card that makes it where it's a random discard for your opponent. And so Chris Jericho's basically like if you think about Magic where you're having like a mill or something that's making people discard cards from their hand all the time. That's what Chris Jericho's ability was. And so he was a really popular card because you could basically, strip your opponent of the cards or resources in their hand to be able to play. So
interesting. All right. So we're getting into some high value stuff here. It's pushing $300, $400.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So this one is Freaks Are Cool. And this works for 3 different superstars. It's Kane, Hurricane, and Big Papa Pump. So it works for 3 different characters. Kane's one of the most popular characters, and he's got 2 different versions of him that you can play too. So really, this card's in 4 different decks, and then Hurricane can be also in Hurricane. So it's 5 different decks that this could play in. So if you're someone that's wanting to put together one of each of these decks built around these wrestlers, you got to have 5 of this card, and it's a throwback version, so it's just hard to find. And it's very useful and helpful in each one of these decks.
Also, this just feels like something that might be, you throw it in a binder and it's kind of a funny gimmick. Like I could see just having one of these for fun. It's like a James T. Kirk to me. I just want one just for fun.
That's right. That's right. All right. Top 3.
Top
all right.
3.
So this one's Armageddon is upon us. And if you see all the different icons on the cards, that's all the different wrestlers that this picks up on. And so you've got multiple wrestlers on here. I think 8 of them total. And it's basically all the 8 wrestlers that came out in this set. So this set had 8 different wrestlers, and Armageddon was upon us, or is upon us, was the top card from it, where it could go into each one of those characters' decks. So you'd want multiples of them, and it's just a really good card all around. And so, yeah, everybody wanted it for if you're going to play any one of these wrestlers.
Very cool. All right, we are approaching our top 2 here.
Number 2, Brothers Till the End. This is the Undertaker Kane card. Everybody loves these 2 wrestlers. They're 2 of the top favorite of everyone that watches wrestling, as well as playing this game. Their decks are fun. Undertaker has 3 different versions of him that you can play. Kane has 2, and then you have a Brothers Till the End version. So there's 6 different decks that this could go in. And so this is super helpful. This isn't even a throwback version. This is just this card remade, and is remade 3 times, but this is the most valuable version of it. This is the one everybody wants.
Okay. Also, I mean, this looks great. Like, this is cool. Very thematic. This is pretty. All right. So this is our top 1 card. This
is our best card, Matt. Here we go. And guess who it's for? The Rock, the biggest superstar in wrestling. And this is his patented Rock foot stomp. And everybody wants this. If you see the 0 in the top right, that means it doesn't cost anything to play. And the damage in the bottom right is 5 damage. And it's a multi-maneuver, meaning you have to reverse it twice. Anyways, this is just like a powerful card. Everybody wants this. There's only 2 versions of the Rock from the print game. And so you'd want it in both of your Rock builds. But then there's a group, Team Canada, that has put together virtual cards for the game for years now. And there's multiple versions of the Rock with them in charge of it. So, yeah, this is a definitely in-need card. It was super hard to find. This holds a ton of value, and you don't see them come up for sale all that often.
So just a question here. I'm surprised that none of the wrestlers themselves are on this list, like The Rock or Triple H. Are those cards relatively valuable, like the mains, if you will, or primary characters?
They were in starters generally, and so they were really easy to get. And so it wasn't like they were too hard to find. There are some that have gone up in value if they were from some of the rarer sets to find. But for the most part, the superstars themselves or the wrestlers themselves are easy enough to get.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a good kind of approach to the game. If you actually want people to play, allow the building blocks of the game to be accessible. I think that's something that Lord of the Rings TCG did well. We had a common and rare version of essentially all the main characters, if you will. But I am surprised to see this entire list is, interrupts, weapon, the equivalent of red cards or spells and magic or something, and not characters, right? Because that feels like that's the
right
thing is characters. So there's never an ultra rare Rock or ultra rare Triple H.
That's right. So your main characters, you start with one in play, basically. And so they're always in play, and they have their ability and kind of do what they do. But then they have superstar-specific cards that are tagged to them, and they'll have rare ones which are easy enough to get, and then they'll have ultra rare ones which are harder to get. And that's what these were mainly built for. It'd basically be like if you could start with Darth Vader in Star Wars, and then all his weapons or things you added to him or built him up with, that would be what your ultra rares would be.
I see. So structurally, it's kind of a different game than you don't need very many characters. Actually, you just need decks built with the 60 card decks, so 59.
That's right. Yeah.
Other cards,
and then you have a pre-match and a mid-match too. So you actually have like a deck you start with that has a pre-match and mid-match, and that's a little more complicated for people that started out with the game. The first 3 sets or so didn't have that, and so that was kind of something they added on to like kind of give you a Q's tent or like shields for Star Wars, where you could add additional things to your deck.
Well, very cool. Scott, thank you for walking us through this list. And once again, folks, if you're interested in picking up some cards to start playing this game, I don't know, I might do how to play. I actually don't know how to play myself, so maybe I'd look to you, Scott, to tell me how to do that.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty cool game. I think, I don't know. It's like I still feel like that sadness from when I was like 14. Everyone's like, we're not going to play Star Wars anymore. We're going to play Raw Deal. So did this run until about 2003/4? It was like mid-90s to early 2000s. Is that sort of the print run here?
Yeah, so it came out, I want to say like 99, 2000 or so, and then it ran through like 2007 or 8. I can't remember which one. So they had the initial run of the game that lasted for, I think, like 18 or 19 sets, and then they kind of rebooted it with 3 new sets called Revolution. And basically, Raw Deal players don't talk about Revolution. It kind of ruined the game. They changed all the wording, so like nothing was compatible, even though they said it would be, and it just ruined it. So a lot of the players like play pre-Revolution, and then there's a small group that play only Revolution. But yeah, it doesn't mix. So.
It's funny, the final thought here, it's funny the trajectory of all these dead games where they all last 6 to 8 years and they all have some attempt at a reboot that happens, whether it's Lord of the Rings with Shadows or Star Trek with 2.0 or even Special Edition with Star Wars CCG, which was essentially a soft reboot of Premiere. So it's just fascinating the patterns that all these games, and then they all make it to like year 7. They're like, all right, we're out of steam, guys. Let's pack up and go. Well, this is a lot of fun, guys. If you like the channel, like, subscribe, check out Scott's store. Scott also has a YouTube channel that has some pretty good information on just collecting stuff. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.